Hello, I'm Rena Anabil, aka Mommy Imperfect, and you're listening to the Sisterhood of Mommy Imperfect, the weekly podcast where I explore womanhood with the help of my fabulous guests. Now, at the end of the month, I do a power panel episode. That's when I get together with my friends Rummy and Kirat, and we take a look at the female focused news stories from the last few weeks. So we have known each other for probably coming up to about 25 years. So nothing is off limits. You're going to get some 100% filter free girl chat. So do keep it locked here. And here is what we're going to be talking about in this episode. So, Gwyneth Paltrow's daily diet and the backlash that she received about it. How does a normal 40 something year old woman's diet compare to that of Gwynny, who is on the bone broth? Which one of us is on bone broth, perhaps? Or which one of us has a plate of chips for lunch? According to a new study, 26 is the age you start actually listening to your mom's advice. Is this true? And is that because we eventually start turning into our moms? And it's coming to the end of Women's History Month. So, who are the women that we think are game changers? And we also want to know yours too. So, if you are tuning in live on YouTube now, feel free to get involved in any point. Just drop us a comment and have a little think about which women inspire you. And yeah, so tell us about those badass boss ladies who have changed and are still changing the course of history. Right, ladies, hello, Romy and Gireth.
Hello.
Hello.
Let's talk celebrity daily diets. Okay, so we know that celebs are known in particular for their bizarre daily rituals, and they do go to extreme lengths to stay slim. So the reason I'm talking about this is because Gwyneth Paltrow last week appeared on an episode of Dr. Will Cole's The Art of Being Well podcast, and she shares what she eats in a typical day. So the internet was going a bit mad about this because she doesn't eat till about noon, which means that she basically skips breakfast. I mean, in wellness land, that's called intermittent fasting, right? Some people think that's great. And then after that, she has something that won't spike her blood sugar, such as coffee. She follows it up with bone broth and then an hour of movement. That's what she does. She does vigorous dry brushing, then the sauna, and then an early dinner finally. And then she says she tries to eat according to paleo, so lots of vegetables. It's really important to support my detox. That's what she said, although I don't know what she is detoxing from. Where's the tox? Where's the tox in all this? I don't get it. What um, you know, that it quickly went viral, her routine. She was kind of called out for glorifying unhealthy, restrictive eating. And she was also called an almond mom, which is apparently slang for a mom who pushes toxic dieting habits onto their kid. And the term was originally inspired by Gigi Hadid's mum telling her to have two almonds to feel better, apparently, when she was really hungry and wanted to eat cake or something like that. Any- anyway, does this whole diet of Gwyneth Paltrow surprise you? Is it like, what girl? What are you doing?
Doesn't surprise me. She's a bit. I mean, I've been following this whole. She's
Skiing
obviously
thing.
yeah. Well, no, not the skiing thing. I mean, even the skiing thing. I mean, how did she knock anybody over? Because if you eat bone broth and coffee, you're gonna knock
There's
anyone
going to be
over.
nothing of you.
Anyway, no, sorry, I haven't really been following the skiing thing, but her whole wellness thing, she's been doing this a long time, and she set up her website Goop and all this sort of stuff, and there's always something wacky on there. A vagina smelling candle was like one of those things.
Vagina steaming randomness. Yes.
All of that, but I kind of take everything she says with a pinch of salt. But this is actually just ridiculous, and I've not really found even one person who has said, "Oh no, this is," or any sort of endorsement. It's just been a complete backlash. And intermittent fasting, I get. I've tried it, but it also then means eating a normal, well balanced diet in the hours that you're not eating, right? So you've got like an 8-hour window or a 10-hour window, and you're just going to eat in that. But in that, you eat your 3 meals and you get your calorie intake in that. It's not not eating till 12 and then just having a cup of coffee because you don't want to spike your blood sugar. That's
I mean,
insane.
don't do what I do though if you do intermittent fasting, which is if you're doing the 10 till 6 eating window at 5:55, you'll be there like shoveling food in
Stuffing
your
your
mouth.
face.
You're like, quickly, I've got 5 minutes. Oh my God. That is stupid. And I stopped doing that quite soon after. Yeah. Anyway, she's actually come out and responded to the backlash saying, oh, I do actually eat things like, French fries and things like that as well. It's like,
No, but if you're going, well, why not mention that then? Why did she not mention that in in her, that was the spotlight, right? It was, you're in an interview, people are going to be listening to this. So why don't you say there that, yes, I also eat French fries? And
I know.
that's ridiculous. It's just, yeah, it's just ridiculous. And I'm sorry, but
I think it's really important that people, I mean, she's an actress turned lifestyle influencer. And the fact that she's classed as a lifestyle influencer and is talking about this kind of lifestyle, she always needs to have those disclaimers. You can't talk about stuff like this and then not show the flip side, or talk about, this is for me, this is what works for me, because this is what I am trying to achieve, whatever it might be. And what they often do in Hollywood is have these crazy diets that work for them and whatever they're trying to achieve. But it's a dangerous diet. And if she is an influencer, lifestyle influencer,
there's going to be girls out there
there's
who are going to,
responsibility involved here. There's responsibility involved in making sure that she's setting a good example, the right example. What she's saying is suited to most people out there, not with somebody with her lifestyle. And being a lifestyle influencer with her lifestyle, it's not going to match most people that are following you. They might aspire to a lifestyle like her. It's going to be very hard to achieve a lifestyle like her. Given that most of us don't have the money she has, or the contacts she has, or the access that she has to things.
infrared sauna.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's that kind of thing. And, I was saying just before we came on air to Rena that, I've just come back from the gym and I was discussing it with my PT as we were doing the session. And one of the things I said to him when I first started training with him is like, train me as much as you want, but I like food.
Yes, girl.
That was my thing. And I said, I eat a fairly healthy diet anyway. I don't eat crap. I don't eat like fried food all the time anyway, maybe once a month, very rarely. So how much of my diet are you going to cut down to make me be even more healthy? You're going to obviously there's like the understanding, like he's helped me understand the balance of what I'm eating, but I still eat 3 meals a day and I get 2 snacks in the middle, and I'm not doing anything crazy. I still eat Indian food, desi food. I do all of that. And it's, it's not restrictive at all. I don't think it is. And you just work harder in the gym, or you work harder, keep moving, doing stuff that you need to do. You don't need to restrict your diet to that extreme to achieve, I'm not sure what it is she's trying to achieve. I personally feel that she's going through some kind of midlife crisis, or one of those, those high society crises that people go through when they have all of that. Because even like I brought the ski incident thing up because since we decided to talk about this, that's happened and that's kind of blown up in the news as well. And the way she's responding and reacting to that, I just feel like it's a bit irresponsible once again.
I think she's just in this other world, and I think it's important to also realize and know that when she was on this podcast and talking about bone broth and all this kind of stuff, she was actually hooked up to an IV at the time, going on about, oh yeah, isn't it so on brand, that I'm hooked up to an IV getting these nutrients. Can't even pronounce the nutrients, but some special thing that's her favorite IV, if she can get it, apparently, but that she was getting her nutrients through an IV. It's like, maybe if you just eat the food, you won't need to be on a drip.
I've got to say, one thing my PT always says, and he says it to me and everybody else, and my doctor said it as well, that all of us need to take vitamin D, and vitamin D with K2 ideally. And he's like, you're just not going to get it in this country. You're not going to get the vitamin D you need. And I think that's the only thing I take when I remember, because I'm so bad at taking any kind of supplement. And there's been, a lot of sort of South Asian women especially, with iron deficiencies, and that happens from time to time. And from time to time I have to again take iron, but I'm again really bad at taking that even. But I keep trying to remember to have that balanced diet, and that's what helps me So if you're not eating properly, you're not getting the nutrients you need. And if you're not eating properly, then yeah, you might be stuck to an IV in a hospital somewhere one day.
Exactly. I would
you know?
be. Because I swear I wouldn't be on some IV for fun. If I ate that food, I wouldn't be on some IV going ha 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 on the podcast or any podcast. I would be in hospital on a drip to survive, or I would have literally flipped out of being so hungry, and my family would no longer exist, and there'd be a newspaper article somewhere.
Don't you
Yeah,
think
that's
in
family,
the in the I mean, I saw it on TikTok, but didn't you think she looked really ill? She
yeah.
looks really gaunt, and she looks really like I didn't really look at her and think, oh, you are the picture of health. I mean, to look at, she doesn't look.
She's never been fat, has she? She's never been
No,
curvy, like
She's always been very
rounded. She's always been very slim.
very, very slim, and just a very slender kind of physique,
Very
right?
lean
But
physique.
maybe that's what she wants, and maybe that's what she's trying to keep hold of. Because I'm sorry, I
There's
will
other
say
ways.
now, at 44 years old, right, you ain't gonna look like that at the age of 50, without killing yourself and severely without these severe restrictions. That's what you'll have to do.
I don't
I
know.
these
My
are
mum
these
is
are
pretty slim for a 60-something
Your
year
mum's
old.
got no flab at all. So if your mum wore a bikini, would she look like Gwyneth Paltrow with like zero body fat?
My mum's pretty much my mum's really lean. Talking, like my mum growing up has probably been always, I mean, I've never been pressured to like kill myself to look thin, like in that sense. Exercise, be healthy, yeah, but I've never been like fascinated with my weight. I need to be this weight, I need to be this. I've never been that person. Don't really care about weighing myself. It's, for me, it's about how you present yourself. But like having a really slim mom and going out and about with her and having like you kind of, she's my kind of benchmark, because sometimes I think she's too skinny. But
Is that just how she is, though? Is that just how she is?
she's got a really high metabolism. She eats like anything. Like she
Okay.
can eat like probably 4 rotia in the evening and whatever. She eats. If anyone who thinks my mum doesn't eat, and I know she's been accused of it in the past, she eats more than probably most of us, right? She's got a really high metabolism. She's quite an active person, just not doing exercise, nothing like that. Just an active person running around all the time, and which she generally just chooses to do. But she has a high metabolism, and she's really skinny in that way. And she buys clothes that she thinks that her size, and I'm like, you need to buy a size smaller, mum. So you can be, right, if that's your natural physique or your whatever it is. And she's like, what, 15 years older than Gwyneth Paltrow or whatever it is.
Yeah,
15
and
years
she's had
plus
3
older.
children.
She's had 3 children. Yeah. And she hasn't got the money she has. So you can do. And like I said, Gwyneth Paltrow's never been super on the big side. So you don't know. But I think she's just probably doing more harm to herself. And as an influencer, doing more harm to other people.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I mean,
that's the biggest thing here. Do it to yourself. I don't care. Don't do it to other people.
The thing is, we are sitting here saying, no way are we giving up things like protein and things like that in order to be thin, right? But a lot of people would be like, oh, bone broth, coffee, is this what I have to do to be slim? Because there is that pressure. And I will admit now, I have had periods in my time, in my life, where I was obsessed with how much I weighed. I have had periods where I weighed myself every day. And the biggest, I'd wake up every day. Well, I thought I wasn't obsessed. I thought it was normal to do this, but I don't think it was. I would wake up every day, weigh myself, and then look at myself sideways to see how my stomach was, if it was flat or not. Because the biggest thing, the goal in my life was to have a flat stomach. And I remember one day after I got married and I'd had like diarrhea on my honeymoon, I came back and I actually had lost weight and had a flat stomach. And then I was like, I'm not joking. I actually went, oh my God. So now I weigh what I'm supposed to weigh and I've got a flat stomach. So now what am I supposed to be working towards? I literally, that's not normal. Like, that's actually quite sad that I thought that.
But that's this whole thing, when they had the supermodel skinny phase where they take, they go out and have their meal, then they go and take laxatives in the bathroom, and all those nutrients go straight through your body anyway, right? and for that flat stomach, for that everything. And the early times, like you, my sort of, if I could change anything, would be my sort of lower abdomen as well, that area, the lower stomach. I hate that. That's my pet peeve of my body. But the only times I've ever lost that is when I've been unhealthily skinny. And that's usually been because something's happened to me, or I've lost my appetite. Not that I'm trying not to eat. I've just lost my appetite for whatever reason for a few days, or like what happened to me, like everyone knows what happened to me, that massive period. I wasn't trying to lose weight. I lost weight, but with that flat stomach came skinny legs, skinny arms, a bony bum.
That's what happens.
Horrible face. And I'd rather not have all of that, because it was gross. I've never liked being that skinny, and I wouldn't sacrifice all that for a flat stomach. And I would never take laxatives or anything like that. If, okay, we all had bouts of like food poisoning or something like that, where you have that issue and you feel like your stomach's really flat, you feel really, really thin. But it's not a healthy thin, is it?
No.
Let's be honest, it's not a healthy thin. You're thin because you're ill.
Yeah, simple as that. I once came back from a holiday where I'd had another bout of diarrhea.
What are you doing on holiday?
Excuse me, you end up in hospital every time you go on holiday, all right? So I just get.
I remember Tunisia too, actually, Rummy.
I did not end up in hospital in
Tunisia.
But
yeah, but it was like not great.
It was not. I just have a very sensitive,
Well, clearly, I do as well. And then I came back from one holiday and I was like, oh my God, I had gastroenteritis and I got happy because I had a flat stomach. That's like, it's so stupid. Like, but I actually feel like nowadays, like I feel like Gwyneth Paltrow, that's why it's so weird her coming out and saying this now, because I feel like now there's more of a movement towards body positivity, towards, it's just be strong, not just skinny, that kind of thing. You don't have to look all perfect. There's, embrace different body shapes. Whereas I don't think it was like that when we were growing up. And I actually somehow got away with putting Slim Fast in the family food shopping when I was about 14. I'm not even joking. I went through a period of having chocolate Slim Fast in the morning, thinking, and then drinking it and thinking, oh my God, I bet I'm getting really thin now. It's not the way it works. But what was I even doing? Like, didn't someone say, like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know how I was doing that.
Yeah, I mean, if mine did that now, I'm really careful about, how I talk about food and what I eat and I'm trying to sort of be, just somebody I eat everything anyway, so it's fine. I feel like I've got a well-balanced diet, and I don't ever say in front of the girls or anyone actually, read either, that it's always about, everything in moderation. Yeah, have a treat. If you've eaten all your dinner, yeah, there's absolutely no problem with having a massive piece of cake. That's absolutely fine. And I'll sit there and I'll eat it with them. So I'm really conscious of, if Mahi's if she, even a little bit comments on food, I'm always like, oh my God, are you eating properly? Does she have an eating disorder? I'm really sort of hypersensitive to it, because I don't want them to go through that. I don't want them to listen to people like Gwyneth and go, or whoever would be, they probably don't even know who Gwyneth Paltrow is, but whoever would be sort of,
they might, if they like Marvel, because I didn't think that my kids knew, and they
overlooked. Oh yeah, Marvel, Iron Man,
Pepper Potts, yeah. So because
but there is, I think there is that whole thing about while you encourage them to eat with it, the important thing is to have an active lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the important thing, that you keep your heart pumping, your heart gets exercised, that that whole part of this being thin or wanting to lose weight or be healthy is sometimes forgotten. We focus on the food thing, like, actually get up and do more exercise. And that's where I think, as in the West, we're slowly, the office jobs and the social media and all of this and working from home, we've become slowly less and less, walking to school. These days, everyone gets driven to school because your school's a million miles away. We used to go to school locally and used to walk, right?
Yeah, used to walk
jobs
20 minutes there, 20 minutes back.
Yeah, jobs were local, people walked.
Yeah.
Now we're working from home. How often do people, bed to the kitchen to the what, how far do you walk? And we're doing that. So I do have like a not a Fitbit, but some what you call them, a fitness monitor,
Yeah.
and I check, and I have a target of steps that I'm supposed to do, not the 10,000, because I do my weights and I do everything, but I don't really care. Okay, Theo, if you're listening, don't kill me. But but the thing is, what it really helps with is you realize how little you might move on a day when you're working from home.
Yeah, exactly.
You have
And
to
that's
get
what's
push level.
scary. Yeah,
you
you might do less than 1,000 steps on a day when you're really working hard, and
Exactly.
you're like, what is that all I've done? And
Yeah.
that's what I find is scary, and that's what motivates me to keep moving in that way. And that's the only thing. I mean, I don't kill myself if I haven't met my goal, as long as I know I've done exercise in another way. I've been doing some weights, or I've done something, or I know I've got to make up for it tomorrow or something like that. It's fine. But it's you don't have to kill yourself to meet something, as long as you're improving slowly, getting better at whatever you're doing and making it a habit. I think it's about making it a habit, not the fad stuff.
I also think that I think you need to come to a place where eating healthy and exercise is not just about I want to look like this.
Yeah.
And this is one thing that I have only over the last few years, maybe since I hit 40, started looking at exercise differently, as in it's not just about, oh, I need the flat stomach. I don't care anymore. I don't. And you know what? I know what it will take for me to get flat stomach. I know. And it's something that I've wanted for years and years and years. Don't give a shit anymore, because what it will take is me doing shit like that, bone broth and nonsense. And I'm not doing it. I'm
It's
not
not
doing
sustainable. It's not
No!
sustainable in any way, shape, or
I'm
form.
I like to eat nice food, and I like to have a paratha now and then and whatever, and chips now and then. So I refuse to do that. So I'm just like, you know what? However I look, I will look, and I actually will look decent, and I do look decent because I do put the effort into working out and actually eating the things I'm supposed to be eating for my health. Because now we're all over 40, so it's come to that point where it's like, you know, okay, perimenopause and all this stuff is going to start happening. We will lose bone density. We're supposed to be doing weights. We're supposed to be
Yeah.
eating this food. Like, when you come to a point where you understand this is what I'm supposed to be doing to keep my body healthy, then you kind of forget about that whole, oh, it's quick flat stomach, starve yourself, and all.
You
It's
don't
just
want to fall and break a bone just like that.
no.
That's what you don't want to happen. And that's why, some of, especially the South Asian women and Black women, they're older, if they haven't been doing that kind of training. Back in the day, in the bin, they were carrying stuff on that was all resistance training. They were
Yes.
carrying things on their shoulders, on their heads, whatever. That's why even as old, frail women, they were still strong. They weren't breaking bones and stuff like that. So it was really, really important, I think. But here we don't do that. So we need to physically do that. And it's funny because we always laugh in the gym because the treadmill was invented as a punishment. Right?
Really?
And here, back in the day, the treadmill was invented as a punishment for people. I think it was in the US. And here we are literally punishing ourselves for not having a healthy, normal lifestyle by being in the gym. People from that time would look at us and go, what the hell? It's just like, we talk about stuff like that. It's really interesting. Now, personal training is really good. So, but we have like really deep conversations about health in these ways, and we've made ourselves lazy people to the point where what was punishment back in the day, we're punishing. We're putting ourselves through it and going, hey, I've done this in the gym. You should have done it in normal day-to-day life.
You should. Walking, like things like people always say to me things like, oh, you know what? I'm going to join a gym and then I'm going to get in shape. Oh, yeah, I can't afford it right now, but when I can, I'll join the gym. And like they're suddenly going to enter the doors of the gym and suddenly go and be like some kind of, I don't know, like Dwayne Johnson lookalike or something. It's like, you actually have to do the work. You don't just go through the doors and something happens to you. It's hard work. But you can actually do those things outside of a gym, like things that you want to do, like walking. That whole steps thing, oh, I don't do that many steps. You don't walk, that's a very normal thing to walk.
Yeah.
And the basic thing you can do, you can get yourself some dumbbells and you can do weights at home. You can.
You
There
don't
are.
need dumbbells. You can lift anything, right? You've got weights at home.
I didn't have weights at one point when I first started doing all this, and I had bottles of water and tin cans and things like that, like cans of beans or whatever. So you can do things like this, and I don't think there's any excuses. I'm not really buying the excuses.
I think it's just really important, though, taking it right back to Gwyneth in that sense of them being influencers. And I think we've lost our own sense of responsibility in terms of who we listen to, and this whole influencer thing that this influencer trend that we have is a dangerous trend, because we listen to people who made them an influencer. We did. Why? Because this one thing about somebody that we like, forget the rest of it. You don't know the rest of them. We don't know about the rest of them, and you follow them for what? Why do we know why they're doing what they're doing? Are they an expert in what they're doing? The only influencers you should be following are professional influencers, people who are experts in their field. These sort of,
and many experts have just completely, I mean, I think
rubbish.
It's like, oh my god.
I'm so happy I'm so happy that she actually got called out for this, because you need to eat,
but we need to be responsible, and we need to be responsible in not giving people that pedestal we're talking about this, but the fact that she has that many followers who are just following blindly, we need to be responsible for ourselves and go and think for ourselves. We're leaving the thinking to other people and saying, they're doing it, we're okay.
They're doing it. And it's such a bad excuse, isn't it, really? We're just so lazy and not looking for stuff ourselves.
And also, I think if you are going to listen to people and you want to get inspiration and stuff, I think it's really important that it's people who've maybe been through similar things to you, or their lifestyle is similar. I'm not going to be like taking advice about menopause from somebody who's like 25. I'm not. Or
exactly,
who's going to tell me how to get into shape, and they haven't had kids and I've had 3 kids. So that, you know what I mean? I think that is really important. So we need to obviously need to really pay attention to who we're listening to. But I'm going to move on now to this new study that was commissioned by the post office, which basically has said that 26 is apparently the age when we start listening to our mom's advice. So what I want to ask is, were you one of those good little girls who always listened to your mom's advice? Do you listen now? Because apparently, I'll tell you the reason for this whole not listening thing is that the human brain does not fully develop until the age of 25. And apparently, according to the poll, 38% of people wish that they had listened to the advice offered to them from their moms. So where are you in all this? Are you like, Kanji mommy? Or no?
I wasn't until, I mean, I think the ages of like 14 to maybe, I think about when I went to uni, actually, so well earlier than 26. 19, I think I would, and I got married when I was 23, clearly before my brain had fully developed. Making those, frontal, it is just your frontal cortex, cerebral cortex doesn't develop until 25. So I always say to my husband, I made this decision without fully, my decision-making skills were, really compromised. It's lovely, really. But no, much earlier than 26 for me, because I got married at around 23, and I sort of really, that's when my relationship with my mom really sort of came into its own. So a lot earlier for me. But so the article was a bit weird, because it was it's all these sort of all the advice maxims, like be nice, and they were a bit like, I don't think my mom ever walked around going, everything in moderation and be nice.
No,
I've got the really weird, mom used to say really weird things, and I like a kaband karke dekhya karo when we couldn't find something.
Is that sarcasm?
Pardon?
Is that sarcasm, or is it?
It just meant we like if you opened the fridge and you couldn't see something and you shut it, like when my brothers might do something like that, and she'd be really annoyed because it's like it's right there and it's like you're not looking. Which meant basically you need to search for it with your hands, like move things. Don't just go. So she used to go and like that whole thing. I think I said
quite
it back to
good.
my
I
mum
need
last week as a
to
joke.
listen.
But but our house is like, we're going, obviously I was saying I'm not sitting in my own house at the moment, sitting here courtesy of my neighbor, because we've got, our house is a building site, so everything is all upside down in our house. So, but I was just being funny with her because that was one of her phrases she used to use all the time. But I was a good girl. I used to listen to my mum and dad. I did have a streak in me that challenged them. I challenged their views and perceptions all the time, but very respectfully all the time, because I did have a fear of my parents growing up. So I was probably brought up in a very, very traditional way. Especially in my dad's side, it was like, you don't speak until you're spoken to in some parts of my
Oh,
dad's family.
okay.
But yeah, I did used to challenge things, or why is this like this? And, you know, I used to be taken the mick out of for, when I was young, you know, I used to say why and kyun to everything, and it used to be like kyun, kyun. Everyone used to tell me kyun. You know, I was so inquisitive, and then I'd ask, because I wanted to know why it was this way. Why do women not do this? Why do men do this? Does this work this way? And, you know, too many questions that people didn't have answers to sometimes. So I was that person, but it was all very innocent and respectful. But the advice I had from mom, and this is where I'm going to say I differ very much from my mom, is that I changed probably very much later in life, to not follow my mum's advice, because my mum was following advice that she'd been given as a brown South Asian Punjabi Sikh woman, which had been passed on from the women before her, which was full of misogyny and sexism and those ideals. And you don't, because the advice she was giving me when I was, you know, seeing somebody, like, you know, you don't say that to your husband, you don't say that to your guy, you don't say this, you know, all men are like this and all men are like that, and, you know, you don't talk about this. That was the kind of advice she was giving me, because that's the advice she was given, and as a result you see them suffer, right? And
Yeah.
you know, that's something I think our generation, the generations below us are very mindful of, and it's something that we're trying to change. That stereotype, that patriarchal
Yeah.
thing, that, you know, the men are important, that Pati Parmeshwar hai, as we discussed in the other
Yeah.
podcast we did, that whole thing needs to change. And I am probably the one in my family that challenges that the most and speaks out the most. And even in my work circles and networks, you know, where the brown community is often still following the mainstream society, so we lag. So there is an old boys network in the city. It is a boys network in the city. It's men in it, and even those all those men might speak to me, they have their own WhatsApp group that I'm not a part of. So, like, I can be having the same conversation with 6 people in you know, in the city network, that some of the people that I work with, but they only have to say it once in a WhatsApp group chat. So, you know, it's that whole, and I kind of say, well, you know, it's the old boys thing. And when you guys mess up, then you will ask me afterwards. But why didn't you just involve me in the beginning? And so, you know, it's stuff like that.
I think it's really important that you actually have brought that up, that, you know, obviously we respect our parents and follow their advice and all this stuff, but there is a point where you feel like, oh, you know what, I am grown, and I've learnt and I've grown as a person as well. And a lot of people have actually managed to change their parents' mindsets by then passing those things on to their parents, because I feel like you never stop learning, like, because even, like, you know, with me, like, I guess if I'd followed my mom's advice, I wouldn't be married to my husband, because they weren't really too keen on me doing that. And now it's like, if I ever said that to her, she'd be like, "No, he's like the best thing ever. It was such a great thing that you married him." You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we've overcome that, and now she thinks that, you know, he's like, oh, the greatest son-in-law who ever lived and all this kind of stuff. But so it is like they've taught you to a certain point, and then it's like, you know, I'm going to go out into the world and do things myself. Like, I kind of feel like, you know, how you were saying, Rummy, as well, that your relationship with your mum became closer as you got older. Because I think we've spoken about this, like we were more closer to our dads growing up. Like my dad was kind of, he is still, and he was very kind of like more light-hearted, jokey, and was quite strict in ways, and you know, gave his advice as well. But I just like to have a laugh and a joke, you know, like if I phoned my dad up from uni, he'd be, "Oh, so what's going on? Ha ha ha," and just have a, you know, light-hearted conversation. Whereas if my mum called me, "What have you eaten? Are you okay? Are you alive?" kind of thing. That, you know, those things, it's like, okay. But then as a grown woman, I think I definitely get on better with my mum. And
Yeah.
and probably since having kids as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I think
appreciate, don't you?
yeah, and I think, you know, we've got to remember that, you know, in this time, like, you know, our mums are developing and growing and
Yeah.
changing all that time as well. So I feel like the advice, say, I don't know if there's a family issue or what a wider family issue that I might be just want her advice on. I think 20 years ago it would be different, and now it would be different, right? Because she's gone through all her sort of, you know, life lessons, and she must be thinking back as well, that the advice that her parents gave her or whatever. So I feel like, you know, just to be mindful of that, right? That they are changing as well, right? That
Yeah.
they, in the last 20 years, their advice would be changing. And I think certainly, definitely for my mom, like, you know, she's become, and her advice is a bit more like, well, what do you want to do now? Whereas before it would have been like, well, you should do this because of, or it would be to put myself behind and to put others forward. But now that's changed a lot. That she would say, you know, she would ask me to put myself, you know, what do you want to do? It's your choice, you know. That's something
I
I've
love
definitely
that.
noticed.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
It's really
Right.
empowering. And I think my mum's changed a lot in the sense of, and she's got a lot of changing to do still, I think, but she is a much stronger woman. She's able to speak up a lot more, and you know, it's experiences that she's been through as well, I've got to say. But they were just brought up differently to how we were. You know, my mum was brought up in Kenya, and you know, and she was from a very large family. And we're not just talking about the immediate family being large, we're talking about living in a large extended family. And then, you know, that's like in the middle from where they were in the Punjab to here. And then she's got married and she's come here and she's been away from her family, which is still that kind of Bind mentality. Once you're married, you leave and you don't leave your family behind. But that's not the way it really works. And here in the UK, it doesn't work like that. And I
It's
think
interesting.
everyone's had adjusting to do.
It says they've had such a, like what you're saying, you know, your mum was brought up in Kenya, and that's so removed from your own childhood, right? My mum's brought up in the Punjab, so removed from our upbringing in the West Midlands, that, you know, I mean, that's going to be different, right? I mean, for our own children, we will have oh, I don't know. I always think that
Hopefully a better understanding. With me, with Umar, I always think
better
hopefully I can guide him in a better way than my parents would be able to, because I have lived here. I understand what the pressures here are. Sorry, I'm not in the house. The phone's ringing. Ignore it.
Oh dear. Yeah, let's hope your neighbor, or do you have to be like, hello, number?
Oh no, it's ringing.
Olivia.
I'll just go away. It's the landline as well. It's not a mobile, so
You can't even
remember
think about
those.
it. Don't worry, we'll just ignore that other
yeah.
for a
Sorry,
while.
everybody.
Don't worry. Do you know what? I'm gonna turn your fader down because I wanted to say something.
Yeah, turn my
Anyway,
fader.
that what's changed now is that my mom has sometimes these days asked me for advice, and that is kind of a big, you know, a big shift because yeah, just things like, oh, you know, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think about this? And that's really nice as well. And but sometimes like my mom's advice has sometimes been a little bit like, oh, you know, are you okay, Kirat? Is there something going on there?
It's actually a voicemail that comes on really loud, but okay.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
it's fine.
okay.
It's gone now. It's gone now.
Okay,
It's
fine,
done.
right. Okay. I always remember when I I woke up on my 25th birthday, and my mom said to me, oh, do you know what? Your body's going to start changing now. Things are going to start happening to you. You're going to start developing flab in places where you never had flab before and all this stuff. And I was like, what? I'm 25. I just want to have a good time. Like, what the hell is this? You know? And it's like, and I feel like, okay, it was very well-meaning and I understand what she was saying. And she's probably said things to me, you know, every 10 years since then.
Well,
or
my
5
mum does
years,
it all the
whatever.
time.
And you just kind of feel a bit like,
Evening primrose oil, evening primrose oil. She's been doing that to me since I was like 15 because I had bad period pains, right? And then she's always then saying, you know, later on in life, I'm like, hang on, I'm going to live my life yet. It's like,
I've got to get there yet.
now another one. I've started listening to things though, because for ages my mum said, do your pelvic floor exercises, do your pelvic floor exercises. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But then now I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe I should, because I don't want to be wetting myself when I sneeze. And things like, oh, do
It's
facial
really good
yoga.
advice.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
very good advice. So I've started listening now, and then you know, or things like I'd say like, oh, you know, I did skipping and I felt like I needed to go for a wee or something like that. She'd be like, oh well, I told you. So then now I have to start listening, and things like now
I
she's
think
saying,
that's
do
really
facial
interesting.
yoga. Do facial
Yeah.
yoga. This is
Yeah.
what you do all the like all this stuff, right? I've started listening to it. No, very recently. I'm talking about like a month ago. I've started listening. So yeah.
But me and my mum share stuff like that, and we always have, because of the, you know, that whole bad skin phase and everything. And so my mum was very concerned about my skin and all that kind of stuff, and she'd do all of that. But I think the interesting thing, like with you saying all of this stuff, it's just reminded me, I went to a girls' school. So that kind of stuff was also taught to us in the girls' school, whether it would be in science, whether it would be in our, you know, PSE, PSHE lessons, whatever it was, you know, because there were no boys about all the time, those kind of talks just, and I think I feel really lucky that I went to a girls' school. It was my choice. My parents didn't force me to, but the fact that you could have all these kinds of conversations really openly about later in life, it's going to be like, they taught us that, you know, the female teachers would share their experiences with us. It used to be quite
Nice.
intimate sometimes. So it wasn't just coming, so that kind of stuff where lots of people might learn it from the mum. We also had that in a girls' school. We also had that from the teachers we had there, which, you know, you kind of learn it, and sometimes you come home and then you ask your mum, what about this? You know, they told us this.
Isn't it
so it was like a
natural?
two-way thing.
It's natural to not want to listen to your parents, right? Because you're
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, what
I
do you
just wanna
know?
listen. I tell you that now.
Exactly. So this is
Like,
what I've done.
honestly.
I've sort of earmarked, I very clearly say to my children, this is really uncomfortable subjects. If you don't want to talk to me about it, these are the
Talk to
people
someone.
that you need to
Yep.
go and talk to. You can talk to your mama. I've got 2 brothers, so I always say to Veed, if you don't want to talk to me about it, you don't want to talk to your dad about it, you've got this, and this person. And they know who those people are, right? They're on WhatsApp with them or whatever. And I say that to Mahi actually all the time, that, you know, because she's way more sort of into her mussy than she is to me.
Same. I was growing up,
Yeah,
I was really close to
exactly.
my mussy. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd listen to that person over, you know, your mum. I had older cousins as well, and I would, you know, I'd always want to, you know, do what they, you know, I'd always follow the advice they gave me. But if my mom had kind of given me the same advice, I'd be like, nah, forget it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really important. And then hopefully later on in life, I'll tell my kids, well, I told you, Mussy, to tell you that. Or
It was all me. I
But
constructed this for
yeah,
you.
yes,
I get that whole
exactly.
kind of cool mussy vibe a lot, because
Yeah.
a lot of people, a lot of my nieces and nephews think I'm the same age as them for some reason, which is nice. But they'll
Lovely.
chat to me. They you know, like even where I'm sitting here, my neighbor's daughter, and I'm like, your mum's only like 2 years older than me, 3 years older than me, by the way. They're like, oh, I just think of you as 25 all the time, and I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I'm good with that. It's like, but it's nice so that they can talk to me. But I also think for me being that person as the eldest cousin as well, was what put me in my mess in the first place sometimes. But it is a responsibility, and you want to signpost them to people who you know will give them the right advice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's always that scary thing. So I know if I can't give the right advice, I have to signpost them to somewhere that will, or this is what we need to do. And I've had younger cousins where I've like, okay, I think I need to take you to the doctors with me. You know, I've had situations like that where like, I think we need to this is probably a bit more than I can handle, or, you know, maybe we need to go and research something
Sort
together or
else,
something
yeah.
like that, you know.
And,
But
and never say I told you so.
oh yeah, never say I told you. Never say I told you so. That's just the worst thing you can say to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to
I
lie
s-
that I've never said that, but yeah.
I
It's
still
I
go to
want to
my,
say it sometimes, but you're like, hold back.
I still go to my mum for advice, but it's just because, you know, it's not just habit, but it's always like, no, I want to know where you know
Yeah.
where she is on this whole thing, and whether I'm way off, or you know what, she's like a barometer a little bit,
You
like
talk
what
things
you were
through
saying.
with them, don't you?
Oh
Talk
yeah.
things through, but there are some things where you just go, oh my god, mom, like, you know, I don't know, organizing my brother's wedding, right, a couple of years ago. You know, he's got married like 20 years after me, and you know, but your parents are trying to do those same sort of like back of beyond traditions, and you're like, no, we're not doing it this way, we're going to do it this way, and I don't care what anybody else says, and all, you know, all this sort of stuff. So there are, it's you know, like Rena, you were saying as well, it's, you know, we can educate them now a little bit as
Yeah.
well, we can
We
give
can.
our advice as well.
Yeah.
But
And
it's
mom
still
comes,
nice to
yeah.
ring your mum and just say, oh, what, you know, what
Yeah,
should I
mom
do
comes
about
home now and says, okay, this is what happened at work today. I don't know how to deal with this, which is
it?
nice. You know, she respects the
Yeah.
fact that, but I'm like, you're confident enough to deal with it, but I'll advise you and guide you as best as I can, you know, and how do I word an email
That's
to
the
my
nice
boss like
thing.
this?
This is the
Yeah.
nice thing about having daughters as well, that you can have these conversations. My mom is like my diary in a way. Like, call her all the time. I'll literally tell her everything that I've done in a day. Like
Then
on
she'll
my
remind you of the things that you don't want to be reminded
yeah.
of.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know, but that's I do. I feel like if I didn't tell my mum about it, it didn't happen, did it? So yeah, it is like that. With my kids though, like I feel like I know that they're not going to listen to a lot of what I tell them, and so like I have my own little philosophies that I really want them to know. So and I always repeat it, and I'm like, if there's one thing you take away from me, just remember this, and this will get you through life. Did you want to hear my little philosophy? I made it very
Yeah,
simple. Okay,
obs.
so um in life, all you need to remember is the three C's, right? Not like Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean, and all that stuff. Even though when I ask them, they say that to take the piss, right? The three C, beginning with like C, um, clever mind,
Yeah.
clever mind, caring heart, and courageous spirit. If you just focus on these things, you're going to be fine in life. That's all you need to think about. Which is,
Very
you know,
nice.
Mm.
and then sometimes I'm like, oh, tell me the things. What did I tell you? Just
That's much better advice than the ones in the article about separating your
Yeah, the
wife's
ones in
ducks.
the article was so random. And I'm like, what? Yeah, what?
They're
You
so
know,
standard. They were so like,
the
yeah,
standard. No, this is this is
but
like
that's really nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I've been saying it for a while, and it's like because I honestly like that's what I want them to be like. Be kind, like knowledge is power.
yeah, I
Be
think
brave in life. So I've kind of broken it down, and if you don't remember anything else I tell you, which probably won't, just remember that.
with my mom, it's very similar. If I had to say something that my mom like that has said, "Kisino duknado,"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
that's something. So never, don't hurt people needlessly or whatever. We will always at some point in our life hurt people, but not intentionally. But because like if but I think she takes it to the other extreme. Who just goes out of her way to not to hurt people that don't care. But like people don't care if you hurt them; they're just indifferent. But she's so self-conscious. But kissing no duknado. I think that's quite an important lesson that we can
Yeah,
all take. What you're gonna achieve by hurting anybody in life.
no, it's true. It's true.
So
Romy,
that kind of thing.
is there anything that you have taken on, like a specific saying from your mom, or something that
I
you
think my
literally
mom would always take the high road. So she would always be like, you just check your own behavior. There's no need to behave like the other person in front of you shouting and screaming is behaving. So always take the high road, which was really annoying, because at times you did actually just want to drop kick that person and behave as bad as they were, right? But she was always like, you check your own behavior.
That kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Like, so
Yeah.
if this person is acting like, absolutely crazy, what are you going to achieve by acting exactly like them, right?
Yeah.
So, but then I felt like, when I was younger, I felt like, oh well, you're just you're not able to fight back. You're supposed to just. I didn't think this was good advice at the time, right? You're just supposed to take it. You're supposed to just take all this stuff coming at you and not behave like that other person's behaving. But I do get that as I'm older now. I get that she was right about that. Just to stay away from the negativity, right, and just block it out, and just gravitate people more towards who, you know, have the sort of energy and spirit as you, and just not that person's energy is about themselves. It's not about you.
Yeah.
No, that's good advice, actually. I also feel like my mom helps me a lot with, like, parenting advice, like, even maybe things she wouldn't have done with us or had the patience for with us. With my kids, she'll be like, "Oh, no, you know, you need to listen to them about this," you know.
Yeah, but sometimes you just feel like going, well,
Yeah.
I would have just got a top on it if I was doing this.
I know. But then sometimes, like, you know, because you're in it and you're very busy, and, like, with 3 kids, it's like, there's a lot going on. So it's really nice and I do listen to her, like, you know, maybe you shouldn't tell them about this, or really listen to them, or this is how you should diffuse certain situations. So yes, it's nice. But we're nearly coming to the end of this podcast episode, and also nearly coming to the end of Women's History Month. So obviously International Women's Day was on the 8th of March. Quite a lot of events took place, and I wanted to just ask you guys about women that you really admire, either women who have changed history or are in the process of changing history, who are game changers in their own way. Come on, tell me.
Kirat, you go, because
Is there a woman?
Okay, I think obviously all of us want to say our mums.
Yeah.
And our grandmothers and moms.
I was going to say my mum, but okay.
No, but I think it's really important, because I think I was really thinking when you said this, why we always say our mums and the women that are close to us. And that's because we understand, because we've lived with them close up, and we know the obstacles and the barriers that they face and what they've been through and gone through. And you have to respect that. And that's why, you know, for all of us, our mums are our heroes. And, you know, for me, my Nani Ji Manji I talk about her a lot every time we do stuff. You know, Manji was a massive, massive influence in my life. Taught me did many of my firsts with her. And again, she was there in 1947 during partition, all of that. So I was trying to think outside of that, because they are definite heroes. And them two will never change in my life. They will always be my heroes. But a woman recently that I've mentioned a few times, I think probably Captain Preet Kaur Chandi. MBE, Polar Preet.
I had a feeling you were going to say her, actually.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of meeting her a few times, chatting to her, hearing her speak, just meeting her family, the people around her, whatever. You know, she is one crazy but amazing, down to earth woman who has done what she's done. 2 Guinness World Records, one as a woman, one as the outright person that's broken that world record in Antarctica, you know, that solo expedition. And that solo expedition, and she talks about it, the first one she enjoyed. So I heard her speak the first time just as she was going to go out to the second one. She'd actually had good days in the snow on the first one. This time round, she came back and she hated every moment of it. You know, it was that tough.
Well, the look of her when she came back was, she just looked so different, right? Like, I saw pictures of her when she came.
I mean, you lose weight. You know, she put on weight to go out there, and then she loses weight, and obviously she's slowly putting weight on and stuff. And she's had the operation on her knee, on her leg, from, you know, that whole thing. And there's a really gory picture of it online on her socials if you want to have a look. But her spirit is something else. You know, she went off and joined the army, which she was told she shouldn't do. She couldn't do. You know, it's not the right thing for to do. So she's a physiotherapist. She went in and she did that. So she joined that. So she's doing all her army things. And then she decided she wanted to do something. She wanted to make a difference. And how she went on her first expedition, how she did it. She knew nothing about Antarctica. So people going, "Oh my God, you must be inspired by." And she was like, really, you know, she was saying in her speech last week, she was like, yeah, when people would say this kind of stuff to me, first of all, like in the first expedition, she used to nod and be like, yeah, I'm inspired by so and so and so and so, and then go and look them up, you know, because she didn't know what she was talking about. She just wanted to do this thing, and she just thought, I'm going to do it. I don't care how. And, you know, there was that things like obstacles, like, have you ever been to Antarctica, or have you ever done this kind of thing? So she's like, she couldn't do that on the tick box, so she made sure she went and did it for a week, so she could come back and say, actually, you can tick that box. So she, like a crazy woman, she went out there and she came back in debt after the first one. This second expedition was supported. But forget all of that surrounding stuff. The strength one, she's defied everybody, people who are telling her she can't do it, she shouldn't do it, what's she going to get out of it, all that nonsense, that kind of thing. But then to go out there and spend 70 days and more in that weather by yourself, carrying your putt, carrying all that stuff alone,
Mad.
managing any accidents you're having, managing all of that, I know, because I was following the second expedition, and you're reading some of those updates, and you're like, she's having a really bad day today. And she talked about crying out there, and then she's like, I can't cry too much because it's too cold outside, and all that kind of stuff as well. And she talked about moments where she goes, I'm not really a religious or spiritual person, but she goes, I found myself saying Vaheguru every time. It was that hard for her, but it hasn't put her off. She came back, she's done what she's doing, she's in really good spirits, and she's looking for, what can I do next? No one's going to stop me. She absolutely believes that nothing's impossible if you want to do it. If you set yourself a challenge, you can do it. You will find a way. Money's not an obstacle. Nothing's an obstacle. You will find a way. And she's going around doing all these talks in schools and inspiring not just girls, but women, men and boys. And it's not about her just being a woman. She is a role model for everybody. And the fact that she's so chill and relatable. She's Punjabi kudi from Derby, as she says. It is. For me, I absolutely love her to bits. I don't have words to say to her, and she knows that. I just love her to bits. What I do is hug her when I see her, pretty much. But yeah, it's just been such a privilege. I think it's been such a privilege hearing her talk, and she's funny. This woman, she's so relatable. She's so down to earth. She's just literally proven everyone wrong. She's become the only person in history beating men as well to do what she's done.
It's amazing.
A huge thing.
Yeah,
so that's I think that's got to be my one woman. I mean, I can mention millions.
Yeah.
When I talked to her last week, we presented with something. Yeah, exactly. We talked about my bugger and stuff, and I just think, how would she have been back in that time? She'd been, if that spirit, she's got that spirit.
Yeah. No, that's good. Rummy, what about you?
Well, I literally was going to say my mom. I've been off social media for a while, so I've been really inward and looking, just concentrating on myself and the family at the moment. So I think at the moment it would be my mom, and it'd be I've been spending a lot of time with my nieces, and I've been really just not inspired by, but just really proud of them, because they're out there working and they're doing really well in their respective fields. My niece is just, she's working on the cruise ships in the theatre shows, right? She's doing 4 shows a day in the Caribbean, and she's really following her dreams. Aww. And, my other niece is working in production and in the film industry. And I want those sorts of role models around, and I talk about them a lot to the girls as well, because I'm like, look, this is not in a look what they're doing, and you just like, just having a conversation and just, showing them sort of what
options there are out there, what's
what
available.
options there are. Yeah, exactly. And that everything is open to you. Anything is open to you, and look at these people who are achieving their dreams. So yeah, just more close to home.
Well, that's really nice that your kids have got people like that around them, because that is even more important than these celebs who we don't know. And I was gonna say Michelle Obama, because I feel like
do you know her?
Pardon? Huh?
Just, do you know her?
I do actually. We speak every day. Well, this is the thing. I don't know her, but I feel like if there's somebody who I feel like has changed things a little bit, and for younger women of color, Black women especially, to look at her and to be in that position is actually a really massive deal, particularly in a country like America, which, let's face it, has a racist past and isn't quite over that yet. But to also, like, I read her book and things like that, and to have this kind of role thrust on you, and then go with it to a place where you're actually the main character, in this whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, your husband was the president and you're still successful writing these books to inspire people, to share your story, to empower people, and also to, I feel like she does want to give back to her community, and I think that is a really nice thing.
I do think it's really careful though. When, you know, I'm just really quickly want to say this, that when we talk about role models and going back to Gwyneth Paltrow earlier, given what we were talking about, when you're putting a celebrity up there on a pedestal, I think we're quite discerning. We understand why we're putting them up there.
Yeah.
People don't, and you've got to understand there's always going to be sides to people that we don't like, and we don't know. And I think if you're going to admire somebody, admire them for, be clear that you're admiring them for this.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And don't be surprised if you find out things about them and you're like,
that you don't like. Yeah.
They did this. It's like, they're a human being and you don't know them. So,
Exactly.
so yeah. But those things that I've said is my reason.
No, I agree with you.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point, because they're not here to like hero worship people and things.
And
like
I'm not saying that about her, but I'm just going back to Gwyneth as well. You know, anybody who's in that position, people admire them. They can be, lots of people's heroes. They might not be ours, but she's got, she's got a following, obviously. But she's somebody's hero, obviously. And it's like, choose your heroes and wisely, and understand why they're your hero.
Yeah, no, that's really good to keep in mind. So thank you so much again, ladies, for coming on, and thank you to everybody who's listening. Please do share this podcast, because I kind of used all my marketing budget on the giveaway that I just did, which was really good. So follow me on @Sisterhood of Mommy Imperfect on Instagram, or follow the Mommy Imperfect page on Facebook for more info. I appreciate all your lovely messages about the podcast. It really does mean a lot. If you could leave a nice review on Apple Podcasts, that would also help other people find the podcast as well. That is all for this week. Peace out, Bernie. Bye.
Bye.
I love the peace out, Bernie.